We have Jimmy from the UgNOG, who is going to be taking us at least how these ISPs work. And they are going to be doing a collaborative engagement on how the DNS is managed by various ISPs. Let's hear from Jimmy.
Hello. Hi, everyone. We all seem to be very quiet and very sleepy. Let's stand up a bit. Yes, turn to your neighbor. Just turn to your neighbor. If you don't have a neighbor, look for a neighbor. If you don't have a neighbor, look for a neighbor. You know, we have very few ladies in the room, so please encourage more ladies. Please, closer. I want you closer. Because the activity you're going to perform is going to be quite vigorous. A laptop down, please. Hold your neighbor's shoulder. Hold the shoulder with 2 hands. 2 hands. Now begin to shake your neighbor like as if you're shaking a mango tree. I don't know whoever is shaking what. So shake the sleep out. Shake the sleep out. Yeah, ensure that your neighbor is now okay. Now stretch a bit. Stretch a bit. Yeah, so that's exactly how our session is going to be. Very chilled. Hey. A lot of the technical jargons have been said. I'm simply coming to break down and throw more light on a few things here and there. And I'm not going to do this alone. We are going to do this together. So as I am requesting my panelists, Mr. Nsubuga, the CTO of Blue Crane, to join me up front. The rest of you are also going to partake in these questions that he will be answering to. So it's going to be a discussion, quite engaging. So I request that we interact, okay? Yeah. So Mr. Nsubuga, you're most welcome. He's the CTO of Blue Crane. Yes. So briefly, I'm going to give you a heads up on this session being taken over by UgNOG. UgNOG stands for Uganda Network Operators Group. How many of you have heard of it? Uganda Network Operators Group, nice. So we are all at par. It was a group that was founded in 2020 by members in the network space, and a few volunteers are the ones that are helping to steer the wheel of this great organization. And we are doing pro bono work. Mind you, we are not paid. What are our objectives? One is to promote sharing of knowledge, collaboration, promotion of innovation, and then technology adaptation. That is one. Two is capacity building and trainings. I'm just going to be brief in whatever I'm saying here. 3 is policy advocacy. 4 is industry-based standards and practices. 5, international collaborations. And that is just a highlight of what UgNOG does and stands for. How do you get to join? As long as you're in the IT space, you are eligible to become a member. And membership is quite very free. It's just your availability that is needed. So if there is any of you that is not part of the UgNOG, please see me after this and we see how best to have you incorporated. Now, back to the panel. As I said, we are going to have quite an interactive session, talking about DNS infrastructure and then server management. Mr. David, kindly give me an introduction of yourself and what you do before we dive into this discussion that we're going to have with the audience.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, my name is David Nsubuga, and I work as the CTO for Brooklyn Communications. To briefly introduce Brooklyn Communications, we are an internet service provider that has been in the market for the last 7 years. We specialize in providing data connectivity to the corporate environment, providing home internet connectivity, and also we do a lot of enterprise solutions for the different organizations. So that is where I work in, and I have about 20 years experience in the telecom industry. So I've seen quite a bit of issues in the network, especially when it comes to the DNS environment and how it affects the telecommunication network when we have issues or when it doesn't have issues. So I'm glad to be here.
Thank you very much, Mr. David. As you can see, we have a resource in the house, a resource that is ready to take on this question. So, you've been in the industry for 20 years.
Yes.
Imagine there is a sudden outage in one of Uganda's main international fiber links. How would your DNS infrastructure cope?
First of all, I think we've had issues like that before. It's not just an imagination, it's something that is actually happening all the time. I think last year, May, we had a very serious issue with our internet connectivity, where we lost connectivity to the rest of the world for like over 24 hours. And it was a really an awakening moment in terms of how are we resilient in terms of connectivity. So we found out that the routes going via Tanzania were not properly existing, and those that were existing were not enough to carry up the capacities. So we had a lot of issues. Now, in terms of connectivity, now when it comes to the DNS itself, because we have some resources in country, but you'll find that most of the users are still using Google public DNSs, right? So you'll find that someone cannot access URA because the DNS that they are using is not accessible. It's out of the country. The resource is available locally, but it can't be accessed because the person is using a what? Is using an external DNS. So the kind of resilience that we need to look at in terms of recovery is that we need to have local DNSs, and these DNSs should be able to do authoritatively, that they should be able to give authoritative answers in regards to these locally hosted domains. You'll find that some users, even people who are hosting locally, who have addresses locally, they are hosting their domain, their DNS records out of the country. All right? You find an organization, let's say, I'm just going to give an example. Let's say if Renu decides that I want to host my DNS outside of the country. So whenever we have that issue, we might have connectivity to him in terms of the IP addresses accessible, the connectivity from, let's say, from my phone to his server is available. But because the DNS that is using is outside the country, that means that we have lost We have lost that what? That connection. So it is important for us to look at how are we building the local resilience in terms of DNS services. Yeah, thank you very much.
Wow. Thank you very much for that. And I pose this question back to you, the audience. This is something that has been happening. Renu, I'm sure you've experienced this. Any other service ISPs here? Rock, I saw Rock around. Yes. Any other ISP? Just case and scenario. Case and scenario. What happened? What did you do? If you can remember, just one or two. Pardon? No. It doesn't have to be an ISP in particular. But if this has happened to you, and how did you address it? Yes, Reno. Microphone, please.
Okay, so for Renu, such a case happened during the election period. And now that you have another election period coming up in a few months, I assume the same situation might come up. On our end, unfortunately, what happened was when we got cut off, everybody was cut off. So in that 1 week, we just had to acknowledge that we won't be receiving any emails, especially the international ones. And on our end, we just did the radio silence. For this coming elections, our audit team, risk management team is trying to come up with measures to ensure that in that period we'll be ready, but the previous one, everything was just radio silence.
You're not going to tell us a secret.
Feel free to prompt.
Or maybe just to add on that is that whenever we have such situations, for example, international communication is cut off, we find that also local communication gets interrupted. So this is the case. This is the case for building a local DNS resolver, a local DNS service that we can rely on. For example, like the quadruple 8, right? We need to have something similar within the country that we can be able to rely on, and where people can be able to actually access local services, because we have local services within Uganda that we can be able to use. But then, because everyone is trying to depend on the outside thing, then it becomes a bit of a trick.
Yes?
I want to chip in on what they're both discussing, we'll bring in, but now, and you also, in his example, if I am technically smart enough to reconnect myself outside, aren't I going against the policy as is? And shouldn't we now tackle it on the policy basis as well to explain that we need local services running, something like that? Because I could turn on the VPN or maybe come up with an alternative, but isn't it going contrary to what the powers that be want? So how do we also address it from that side?
Members, this question is relating to policy. This question is relating to policy. Who would want to take that job?
We need someone from UCC.
Yes, someone from UCC, please come and take the job in terms of policy. Okay, but yes, I totally agree with you that there will definitely be need to look at policy as well. But this is something that I believe is not happening or has not happened before. And if it is there, we have the standard operating procedures, yes, but the policy implementation might be the challenge where we haven't delved into. So maybe, yes, that is a point to note for all of us here in the room. And I believe that after this discussion we are having here, maybe the policy makers who are here, we can sit down and try to draft out 1 or 2 policies that are looking at particularly this issue. Does that convince you a bit?
Well, the outcome I would like here is if the problem is the messaging site or the social media site, you shouldn't shut down the remaining part of the internet. I can't get access URA, I can't access my ERP or something like that. That's what I was trying to look at. In other words, I'm not to go in conflict with what has been decided, but not use a big knife to cut the entire rest of us off. So the other services continue running. Like you were saying about filtering, you can filter off some sites, but the rest continues working.
Continues working. All right, thank you. Allow me move to the next question. This, you also prepare for it as I'm posing it to him. Please be thinking of what you would do. So the question says, if you could redesign your DNS setup from scratch tomorrow, what would you do differently, and why?
Okay, in regards to as an ISP, one of the main focus that we have, separate from what most of the hosting services have, is that our main focus is on resolvers and PTR records. Those are the main things that we put our emphasis as internet service providers, separate from the hosting services. Because from the hosting services, it's mainly the A records and the MX records and all that. For us, we are looking at how can we be able to resolve for the end users, and also how can we provide PTR records for those subscribers who have our IP addresses and they want to authenticate their domains. Now, one mistake that we typically do as ISPs is that we tend to make both of these functions appear in the same device, right? You have your resolver and your PTR records, and basically everything within the same DNS. So you'll find that in case you have an issue with this particular DNS, maybe you even have a backup and stuff like that. But in case you have an issue within these resolvers, then you're going to affect your PTR records, right? So if I was looking at redesigning the DNS, is that I would like to separate these functions and try to delegate as much as possible most of these functions to the different servers. Yes, as I said, before, that DNS is low. It doesn't take a lot of capacity, right? But the criticality of the service is very, very important, because I mean, if a PTR record goes down, if a server providing PTR record goes down, there are several organizations that are not going to be sending emails, which is very tricky for the businesses. If the resolvers are not working, then you're going to have an issue with people not working at the same time. So you need to separate these functions so that if, for example, someone is changing PTR records and they make a DNS service goes down, then the resolvers are not going to be affected. So that is something that I would definitely look at critically, so that I have separated services.
Having separated services is something that Mr. David would think about. What would you think about? What would you do differently? Yes.
I agree with him. But because I agree with him, I want to think a bit out of the box.
Okay.
Why can't the ISPs have a locally hosted DNS records, even if they're competing with each other? Why can't Renu have their server hosted there and they have their server hosted here without charging each other per se, or giving each other some fee, but we are able to have the records shared in case this one is down, someone can still get access to the record. Would that kind of work as a way to mitigate downtime?
Yes, the audience is taking these blows. ISPs, this was specifically for ISPs. Please, Rock.
Yes, I can try to answer that.
Okay, someone is interjecting.
We have, for example, I saw Kyle here from UIXP. We are already working together in terms of interconnectivity local interconnections. And of course, we have a route server, which basically broadcasts all the routes of the country within. We definitely need to work to improve that infrastructure so that we can also look at the DNS services. Because we know DNS services are they're not very expensive in terms of hardware, in terms of services and all, but they're very critical. So it would make a lot of sense for us to actually come in together and on top of the IXP, actually I'm going to propose that to him, on top of the IXP, we have a local DNS, which we can all be forwarding to, and also we can use that same local DNS to do some kind of filtering for the rest of the industry. It will make it much more easier and critical for us to work like that.
So in that regard, there is something that is already going on. There is an effort that is okay. So I think that answers your question. Though some other ISPs might want to maybe add a voice. Yes, Rock has woken up. He wants to say something. Okay. You're representing your company, so the views.
Yeah, it's interesting. Just a comment about his last point. I think it's a good thing he has raised. Usually, I think it's difficult for ISPs to come together. I think on your last point, that might be one of the reasons why we don't have such a solution. It's very hard for competitors to come together. And I think it's one of the reasons why we have third parties like Google with their DNS, which is accessible to any other person. It's a neutral third party. Then maybe to what Mr. David has said, the initiative KIX is Kenya. The UIXP is trying to come up with a locally central DNS which is neutral, at least to all the service providers. So those are some of the initiatives which I think is coming up. We just need to be, I think, a little bit patient. I believe all these things are going to fall in place together. Yeah.
Okay. So, in a layman's language, should I say that there are trust issues between the ISPs, or security issues, or it is a business? It's called business secret. That's up to you. Yes, you have something to add to that?
No.
Yeah, that's for you to ponder. But I totally agree with the need for us to be able to share some of these resources. Moving over to DNS security. We are thinking together. We are discussing together. I'm sure some of you have faced DNS attacks. I would like to ask, how did you respond to them? And what is that one attack that you remember that you felt left an impact or made you question your career as a network engineer? Yeah.
When it comes to DNS attacks, it's very interesting that you will not notice it. You will not see it coming, and most typically, the effects are not directly on the DNS service itself, but the services around the DNS. Why am I saying this? You find that, especially for smaller ISPs, if you don't have a very big budget for a DNS, you'll get a bind DNS, put it on, get another service, put it on, and then you find that the other services become attacked, and then in the process, your DNS also gets attacked. All right? So I've seen cases whereby let's say someone's website is being attacked, and then the DNS also gets corrupted because they are hosting the services on the same device, and because of that, they have to keep so many ports open. Now those ports give access to the bad players, and then there's a DOS attack on the web service, and then that attack also affects the DNS service. So typically you find that most of the attacks that happen on DNSs, let's call them third-party attacks, because they don't come directly for the DNS, but the services that are running on the same infrastructure as the DNS. So that is where we are saying that you need to actually separate your DNS and treat it as a very, very critical infrastructure and put proper protection around it. Open only those ports that are supposed to be opened, and then leave the rest out of, because this is a critical infrastructure and should be treated like that.
Interesting. I can see someone's hand is up. They want to add on to. When I say I see someone's hand up, I mean who has something to say? Your experience.
Yeah, I think my experience would be kind of similar to what David is describing. We as ISPs or network engineers, we may not really see the impact of DNS attacks, because in most cases they don't actually target the actual DNS server. In our own case at Rock, I don't think we have ever had an attack directly on the DNS servers. But we do get some of these, we notice when customers bring up issues, that's when you start figuring out there's actually an issue. And in most cases, it's targeting the customers, the customer devices at times. In most cases, that's what we see. So I think the issue of DNS security goes beyond just the DNS. It cuts across network security as well, because that's one of the entry points some of the attacks come from. If you have poorly deployed network infrastructure, you expose the services or the nodes or the DNS parameters on that network service. So through that, attackers can gain access to the DNS services for that particular customer, and you will see issues around that area. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. An addition? Yes, this is interesting.
Maybe just an addition. DNS attacks are not necessarily on the DNS itself, but on the services. Like, I'll give an example, email. If someone discovers that you don't have an SFP record, which is SFP stands for Sender Policy Framework. This is a piece of information on your DNS record that defines which server can send emails for you or as your domain. So now when someone realizes that you don't have this record, this specific record, they can easily spoof your domain. What does spoofing mean? Spoofing means someone can attach your domain name. For example, if you usually send mails to your clients from information@rocktelecom.co.ug, someone can add a header to that malicious mail and say, this is, let's say, accounts. Let's say you didn't have accounts. Someone will say, this mail is coming from accounts.rocktelecom.co.ug and send it. So now, if your DNS record doesn't have an SFP record, that defines specific servers that are supposed to send mails to send mails, how can I say this? To send mails as your domain, allowed to send mails, how can I put this? On behalf of your domain, yes. Thank you for helping there. So if someone finds out that your DNS doesn't have this record, they can spoof and send mails to clients or potential clients, or it doesn't necessarily have to be your clients. But at the end, you find that mail providers like Gmail, which almost everyone in the world has a Gmail account, will not be able to specifically say, no, this person specified this IP address as a server from which mails from their domain should come. So I cannot allow you. So you'll find that in the long run, especially spammers, they will spoof your domain and be sending mails as your domain. And in the long run, Gmail will look at your domain and say, you know what, this domain, I've been seeing lots of mails coming from this domain, and I think I'll first hold on. I will not receive any mails from this specific domain, although you're not the one necessarily affecting your own domain, but it's someone else who has realized that, okay, this person doesn't have this particular record, so I can abuse this person's domain and not compromise myself, but compromise him. So I think DNS attacks they don't necessarily affect the DNS itself, but they affect other related services to DNS. I think that is it.
The discussion is getting interesting. Wow, I can see hands are up, hands are up, hands are up. Yes, I'll take 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Ismail again.
Yes, you did the second.
I want to start by saying I'm liking the discussion, but me, I'm the consumer. So when you start telling me that the DNS server was not attacked, but me, I'm the consumer, I still have a problem. I'm still feeling the pain. So as he was explaining, I was thinking, one of the reasons I think why we are using a lot Google is because it's free. And it's easier to sign it on. I want to again throw the ball back to the ISPs. Is there really no way you can coordinate your efforts as ISPs and start having a local person having a security DNS? Because I know there's Quad 9, 999, which also offers security services as a DNS server, okay? But because of our local languages and our customization here, sometimes it is not easy to detect this is a forgery and this is not. This is a genuine one. I would immediately know if they were the administrators of their servers. Someone registering Rock's IP or email from outside the country accounts why. If I was the local administrator, I would immediately question why this is happening and filter it out before it even gets to their customers. In the earlier session, he was talking about .kampala, .safari. If someone is seated in the US, he will not realize that there's a difference between Safari of Tanzania or Safari of Kenya, that these are all, if Kenya registers it or even if Somalia registers it, he won't know that this is a Swahili word and it is specific to countries which are speaking Swahili. So I'm going back to that. You might have to step up the efforts towards having local administrators for these services to be able to filter and make your services better for your customers in the long run. My thinking that as a group of ISPs, you are hosting a local DNS security server, you will be able to spot a domain which is being registered outside the country versus inside the country. On top of that, you would even know who to call the moment something flags itself as, Bona, this one is registering from Japan, really? Let me call the Rock guys and ask, what is going on here? Are you guys opening an office in Japan? If he says yes, no problem. You go ahead. But if immediately we can deal with the problem faster before the damage trickles down to the consumer. My thinking.
Interesting discussion. Let me have the other gentleman over there.
I will just make a small comment. When it comes to domain names, especially registering them and also where they are being used, there's always a bit of an issue. For example, we have there's a domain name, a CTLD called LY, which is basically Libya, right? Then there's another one called IQ, which is Iraq, right? Now, you find that these end domains were already interesting because people would write something like tinely or whatever it is. Simple, make the domains very simple. But now what happened is that the US, when they did some sanctions and all, you find that most of the people who had their domains ending in LY had issues because they thought these were Libyan companies or Iraqi companies. So they had a lot of issues in terms of that. So it is not just a local problem to Uganda in terms of where the domains are going to be used and where they are going to be registered and all. But the question would be, if we have an issue locally in terms of let's say external connections go off, how can we be sure that the services that we have hosted locally can be accessed locally without having to look at DNSs that are outside of the country.
Interesting. Yes, this gentleman.
DNSSEC. Usually, the DNS security issue is a minor problem. It's usually a bigger problem from your perimeter, because in many circumstances, people who do DNS poisoning, cache poisoning, because what he was talking about is called DNS cache poisoning. A person can sit, once they penetrate through your network, they can sit on your DNS, and internally you actually have no problem. Because he knows the moment he causes trouble internally, he's going to alert you. So what usually happens, this person will sit on your DNS and he poisons your records for anything that is going out. For instance, if I'm a spammer, I'll sit on your DNS and I start routing mails through your DNS. I'll be sending mails on your behalf without you noticing. And I will not disrupt any services internally because I don't want to alert you. But what will happen, the domain will get blacklisted. Usually your mail server will get blacklisted because they're international blacklists, where the moment they notice that your domain is spamming, they'll add it on a blacklist. And that's how probably, the moment they add it on a blacklist, people who have their security top-notch, who are using good firewalls, they will pick up these blacklists because they keep scanning through these blacklists to see which new domains have been added. And the moment they land on your domain, automatically their firewall will stop receiving your mails. So you'll get issues like, we are sending you mails, they are not coming.
They're not coming.
But internally you'll have nothing, and yet for me, I can write back to you. At the moment you write to me, you will not see anything. So usually the DNS problem, to me, is on the lower issues that we should be handling. We should be focusing on our perimeter, because usually the attackers who attack our DNSs, they never come focused for that. They come focused for other reasons, but the moment they get onto the network and realize that you have a weak DNS, then they will start doing the DNS cache poisoning. Yeah, and then the domains, as I said, some of these things are beyond our control. They are a bigger problem. For instance, it's on record that every minute, spammers around the world register around 4,800 new domains. If you start on your firewall today and you start blocking domains, after 10 minutes, there will be new domains coming in. You will see .xyz, .ww. They are always doing it because they are paid money to do this job. To you, they are appearing as spammers, but to some other people, they are paying them to actually do massive campaigns. So it's a business. So it's not a local problem as you think. There are people doing it as a business. So I think the solution, as he said, as the CTO said, the issue is that we need to find a way of having local authoritative DNSs, whereby if services internationally are affected, our traffic here remains intact.
Wow. Thank you very much for that. Wow, it's getting interesting. There is this man from Soroti University, and then that gentleman over there. Yes?
Okay, thank you very much. Actually, has addressed what I wanted to say about the blacklisting databases. Yeah, when your DNS is exposed to attacks, usually it is blacklisted in the public databases, and it actually becomes very difficult. It's a nightmare. Like, let's say when you have a mail server and that IP address is blacklisted, and maybe the mail server is being used by very many organizations. So you can't sleep. It is actually very hard. Personally, I experienced it. The IP was blacklisted, and when you contact the IP provider on the abuse email, they will never get back to you. You can't sleep. You are receiving calls. We can't send mails. Another scenario was that Google blocked because of the sender policy framework, you can't send an email to Google users. They can send you, but you can't reply because Google has already filtered your IP. So my recommendation would be for the DNS managers to enforce security measures before they put the DNS into production. Thank you.
First, I'd like to address one of the issues that someone mentioned about the domains. I'm from I3C, and we manage the .ug. So there's a product called the domain block. So this is a product available to any organizations who'd like block like their brand. Let me say like NTV. So NTV can put block on all domains that have NTV, such that if they are only using ntv.co.ug, no one else should register ntv.ug, ntv.all.ug. So this is a step to block people with malicious intent from using any of those domains for their own malicious reasons. Another thing, we have talked about several issues concerning DNS security. We also have to look at social engineering. These are people within the organization. So the attacker is not always someone external. Sometimes it might be someone internally in the organization. So you as an organization, you have to make sure that you have a proper standard procedure in regards to security. If an employee has left, you have to apply some measures to make sure you reset your credentials, everything. Also, when we are talking about that, there is that issue of DNS shadowing, whereby someone with access to your DNS can add a subdomain to point to a malicious website or anything and start operating on it as if they are doing their work on an official domain. So let me say, for example, if I have access to the domain of Bank of Uganda, let me say I'm part of their team.
She has disappeared, yourself.
Yeah, she has just. So if I add a subdomain there on that DNS, I don't tamper with anything else. And I just use this subdomain maybe to present my website as an official Bank of Uganda page, another extension, a subdomain to the Bank of Uganda domain. Many people might think it is legitimate because it is seated on the Bank of Uganda domain, but when it was injected on the DNS, so that is DNS shadowing. So all of these fall under that topic of making sure that you also have security measures that you take as an organization internally to make sure that all your employees and even past employees, you have standard procedure to make sure that you manage their credentials very well. For internal employees, there has to be at least a limit that every after 2 weeks, every after a month, you have to reset your credentials. Because some people set their passwords and they forget about that. They just leave it in a password manager forever, yeah. So sometimes an attacker might be an internal person, or an attacker might use an internal person's credentials to access the DNS. It doesn't always have to be someone outside the organization.
Okay. Yes, thank you very much for that. I just want to get into one last question that says, how can ISPs collaborate beyond competition? Eh? What's true peer support of network? What would it look like? Eh? ISPs, how would you collaborate without putting competition aside? Eh? We lock them up here and they don't leave. That is interesting.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
As we wind up.
When it comes to ISPs working together, already we have an ISP organization, ISP-AU, Association of Uganda, and we basically have been working together for quite a long time, a very long time. Because I remember when I first started working, I think that was in Worried Telecom very many years ago, when we were just starting up. I was tasked with the role of ensuring that Worried Telecom joined the IXP team. So we were able to actually set up this IXP, and we started working together in terms of sharing local infrastructure, local internet connectivity. When you look at the other infrastructure, like the physical infrastructure, there's already a forum that is being worked on, and we are actually looking at how can we share the physical infrastructure in terms of poles, ducts, and the rest of the infrastructure to make sure that we can be able to work together as an ISP community to make sure that Ugandans can get the right connectivity and at affordable prices. So because once we are sharing these infrastructures, it makes sure it is from that point that we can reduce our costs generally as an industry, also make things more sane, like you said, that if we can work together on these bigger things, definitely we can work together on the on the DNS issue. And I'm very happy that I3C is in the house. I think I've worked with Mr. Charles Musi for quite a long time. I've known him for a long time, and surely this is something that we need to look at in detail, because if he's managing the top domain of the country, then definitely he is very key in terms of the local DNS. So definitely, as ISPs, we need to work together with I3C as partners to make sure that we can get the local DNS infrastructure set up and also shared among ourselves. Definitely, there are frameworks that we can work with. We have the ISP AU. We can get I3C to join us, and then we can see how we can be able to bring up this critical infrastructure under sharing.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. David, for that. I would only take in 1, 2 suggestions from audience. Yes, please.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Yes, I'm not from ISP, but if Renu is here, then I'm part of the ISP. Yeah, so like Renu does, they do announce the IPv4 and IPv6 blocks to other networks. Or even Raxio can also be announced maybe to MTN, from MTN to Airtel. So there's that connectivity with the Border Gateway Protocol, BGP, when they are routing traffic out of the country, or even when the traffic is getting into the country. So there's that interconnectivity between the ISPs.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, one last one. Someone who has not, we have not heard from any single lady.
I think this particular question is very key for the I3C team to actually make a comment, because if they are managing the country domain, how are they trying to make sure that all these local, the .ug is actually hosted within the country?
Yes.
All right?
Wow. We are winding up. As you can see, Mr. Daniel has come to take over the...
I'm sorry, but I want to thank IC3 for the submission he's given, and I was wondering how he can propagate it more so that all those who are registering know about the block, the domain blocker and all that. I still think it's also the right tool or the right avenue to control, because his example, if I blocked ntv.co, it is only valid within Uganda. If another individual outside in Europe decides to register ntv.com, I don't know how you're going to stop that one, because that's the scenario and then inject it into our potential users.
I think you're starting a new discussion.
Yeah, but I'm
just adding that we are concluding.
Yeah, I know, but I would like him to also think about it, and
yeah,
I think that's why I said I think it is pretty good, but they would also figure out how to factor that in for domains which are not within their control.
1 minute, please. 1 minute, strictly 1 minute.
Yeah, in regards to his question about if the domain is on another GTLD, there's what they call the global block. Now, the one that I talked about first is the local block, where you're blocking all domains on the .ug, apart from the one you're using as an organization. But there's what they call the global block, and this one is a partnership among several domain registrars around the world. You can block a certain brand, let's say like Google. Google put a block on their brand. If you go and try to register, whether in Rwanda, whether in Kenya, whether in South Africa, and you try to register a domain with the word Google, you will see that they will tell you this domain is not available. So that is what they call a global block. So depending on what you want and how much you are willing to spend, you can either first say, I want to block only in Uganda to make sure that my brand is protected in Uganda, or I want to block across the entire globe, that my domain and my brand remains protected and only available to me. So I think that would be the solution for that.
I think he wants to solidify your point before we close. I think he wants to solidify your point, then him, then we close.
I think blocking is a short-term solution, because the truth is, it comes at a cost. That's number one. Number two, you're not certainly sure that in the next 5 years, there will be no new top-level domains coming up. Because the fact is that there will always be new top-level domains coming up. So it will reach a point when, as an organization, it's not sustainable, because blocking every single domain comes at a cost. It's not free. So me, I think we should be going back to the best principles of cybersecurity. And the thing is that cybersecurity is not a one-day job. It's a practice. It's a discipline. You cannot say that I've done it today and I'm safe for the next 10 years. So yeah, that's the honest truth. So we need to go back to the best practices of cybersecurity, where we need to be proactive. Because even if you wanted to block, the fact is that it's not sustainable. You can't do it. It's just a short-term solution. So we should be looking for a more lasting solution, and that calls on all of us checking on our cybersecurity practices. Just to throw in something, I cannot speak authoritatively, but I know for sure, as the regulator, as UCC, we are trying to get a workaround for that problem. So most likely, we may be calling I3C on board very soon, because it has already been an in-house discussion, the cybersecurity thing, through our CERT team. So we may get a solution, but it's work in progress.
Yes, good to know that there is some effort that is being put through. So I would recommend that you continue that discussion with him one-on-one, as we're trying to wind up and manage time. Okay? Yes.
Thank you. So let me take the last chance. My question goes to ICCC. Most of you might have noticed the Uganda airline company flies a .com. So I'm wondering why they're not flying a .ug on their website.
Well, that was a decision that was taken by the management of the Uganda Airlines. But earlier on, my colleague Edward mentioned, there is a government TLD for .ug, that is called .go.ug. It's reserved for all government institutions in Uganda. So basing on what the management decided, maybe they thought that they could go with the .com to appeal to a wider audience, but that is a discussion that maybe we can have with them. So we cannot maybe force an organization to do that, but as a standard practice, we recommend for all institutions and organizations that are operating in Uganda to take up a .ug. Because apart from having a brand in Uganda, also when you look at Google searches and SEOs, so Google search will prioritize what they call a CCTLD when they are bringing up such results. So if you have your website on a .ug, that means you'll be among the first ones to appear if they are searching on something in Uganda. So that alone, I think, is something that can help other people who are scared of taking on a .ug, thinking maybe a .com will appear to appeal to wider audiences. Then another thing is that, as you have mentioned, it's the Uganda Airlines. Yes, Uganda Airlines. The word Uganda itself, it's supposed to be on a .ug. And yeah, I think that is something the management of Uganda Airlines can answer very well, why they decided to go the .com.
Yes, since we are not part of the management of Uganda Airlines, we are going to skip that.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, all of you, for being a great audience. Mr. David, thank you very much for taking us through this session. This has been UgNOG, Uganda Network Operators Group, taking you through this session, and we are looking forward to further engagements with you.